Let's do the scenic route. Well, this looks pretty. Here we go.
We've basically got 2 or 3 generations who are utterly screwed right now.
As advertised, you've got some pretty strong views on that.
Unfortunately, Pandora's box is open. There's no, you've been great, we'll look after you. It's the least I can pay you to get you out of this building because I haven't placed you with a tool.
Well, that's wildly depressing. Okay, here we go, on our way again, out on a new adventure. And this week I'm investigating jobs and how AI is going to impact them. There's a lot of coverage in the media at the moment about the lack of jobs or potential job losses as a result of our kind of corporate fascination, I suppose, with the idea of how AI can make businesses more efficient. Now, seemingly the issue with making something more efficient is you have to take something away to make it more efficient. And people's worries, obviously, at the moment are the thing that will be taken away will be people's jobs. So I don't know how true that is or how that will manifest moving forwards. So we're talking about jobs, and we're going to go and try and find some answers or some more information, some more ideas on how we think this is going to play out. What does this look like for people like you and me? Will it replace some of our functions? Will it help us in our careers? Will we become potentially too dependent on AI to commit to a job that we get paid for? There's lots of questions that need answers to. And I don't think we're going to get a definitive answer today, but I'm going to go and speak to Mark Butcher. Now, Mark is he's a big advocate for making sure that technology is done right in multiple ways. And he always has some very strong views on things. Now, he may come at it from a very pessimistic position, which he's kind of widely known for. I do tend to call him the angriest man on LinkedIn, and that's for good reason. But also what has made Mark very successful in consulting for huge companies, government departments, because he kind of cuts through the bullshit and he says it like it is. But it's important that we don't just listen to the hype and the benefits, because yes, there is benefits, but there's also going to be side effects, and those side effects we really need to concentrate on. Anyway, we're going to go find out what Mark's going to say about it, and then hopefully I won't cry or come out feeling even more depressed than potentially I already am. On the ride down, I teed you up as I've said to you before, the angriest man on LinkedIn, for I think good reason. Maybe I should say the most opinionated man on LinkedIn. That's probably fairer.
I don't mind either. I'm
Okay.
with it.
Well, yeah, and I also said you wouldn't mind, and you kind of wear that as a badge of honor. Yeah. But what I do want to talk to you about today is jobs, future of work, the meaning of work. It could get quite philosophical, I suppose, in some ways, but popular media at the moment is predicting all sorts of job replacement or lack of jobs, and that seems to affect kind of early career, mid-career, and obviously late career as well, but that probably calls into question a lot of other things like education. So I'm hoping that we can kind of go through it, and I know you've got some fairly strong opinions on some of these challenges and what that looks like. So I suppose if I was going to kind of kick this off, one of my first questions really is, how do we think current AI tools or future AI tools are going to impact what education means now from a curriculum perspective, and where do we think that first stage goes?
So what do you think?
Education isn't moving anywhere near as fast as it needs to. It's a combination of hypocrisy, stupidity, and lethargy. And if you look at the really weird thing, so students today, universities are investing a crap ton of money in like AI detecting tools. They're telling them not, if you catch you writing an essay with it, you get 0 marks. And how is that preparing them for the world they're going to walk into? So these people are walking out into companies who go, you need AI skills.
And I suppose, I mean, at this point, where does it become more important with understanding what AI is going to mean? I mean, are we looking far enough back? Obviously, into like primary schools. But I would not want to be a 15-year-old, 16-year-old right now.
I don't think the primary school age and younger are actually going to be the problem with this, because they're going to become AI native, because it's going to be everything that's in their life anyway, and they pick up the tools faster than anyone else anyway. The bigger problem is that gap. We've basically got 2 or 3 generations who are utterly screwed right now. Anyone from the age of like 13 to mid-20s and beyond has been left hanging.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think I know a lot of parents as well. I know you and I both have older children who are already kind of in the working world now, but I know people with kids who are 17, 18. They're saying, should they go to uni? What are going to be safest jobs or roles to go and look like? And obviously, there's massively, wildly differing opinion on what that looks like. I mean, I think there's been a question mark over university for some people for quite a while.
I think it kind of depends what you're looking at, because there's a huge number of university courses where there's now no perceived value.
Yeah.
Because if the intelligence and information is everywhere, then who needs to learn it? So what about literature? What about music? You don't need to do it anymore, because you can create something using AI. All the creative arts, I think they're absolutely decimated. The jobs in them are they're hemorrhaging faster than anything I've ever seen. And then when you get to other areas like law, that's being totally reshaped from top to bottom. And we're churning out people with law degrees, we're churning out people with all those kind of content, and there's no roles for them.
Yeah.
So when they get out the other end, whereas there might have been 1,000 firms recruiting, now there's 200, and that's going to drop even faster.
I know you consult with a lot of big organisations across the country. Are you seeing and hearing that practically, that there are not as many jobs? Or
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. So there's 2 sides to look at it, because people talk about the job decimation. And yes, that is happening, but the level of jobs isn't necessarily dropping that fast, but it's the new recruits that are being cut. So it's invisible at the moment. So we're seeing the number of, take a law firm I'm working with, they've dropped their graduate recruitment intake by 85%.
85%.
Yeah, because they don't need them. They're replacing them with other tools.
It's always good when we talk about AI, but it's obviously such a huge topic. But what type of tools? Is this like over-the-counter monthly subscription type stuff, or is this specialist?
It's a real combination, because in every niche, AI is being forced into every application or service, whether it's got contract law reviews, for example. That kind of thing is now being done very rapidly using AI, whereas before there would have been a whole team of paralegals and juniors working on it. You can argue about the quality of the output, absolutely, and we're already seeing that in court cases. Already we're finding that AI hallucinations are appearing, and there's been a particular one this week, hasn't there, with West Midland Police.
Yeah, I think some of the provenance of that intelligence was clearly, or is now been confirmed to be questionable.
It was beyond questionable, and then the leadership lied about using the tools in the first place. So the hypocrisy was beyond strong, and because they went into it wanting to prove an outcome, so they used the tools to facilitate the creation of fake outcomes.
Which I guess comes into the amplification of bias in some of these tools, I suppose, without getting too off topic. But I think I've equally seen reports of judges who are openly discussing how they're using AI to summarize cases, and then we see some of these kind of fictional precedents come forward. So it's kind of like, there's some judicial problems, I suppose, unfolding as well.
Yeah, which brings me on to the biggest problem that we've got, is that no one can now trust anything.
Yeah.
Because any counter argument to any conversation now and ever is, well, that's just AI. So you can't actually prove the provenance of any information now. So no one can guarantee anything is real, because anything from an AI generator can look exceptionally realistic. Whether it's video, documents, doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, to the jobs thing, I think one of the things. I mean, so I've been hiring in dark matter recently, and I get hundreds of applications, which is great. If people will want to come work at my company, I think. But when you're sitting with 200, 300 CVs turning up, and we read them. Well, we haven't got fancy AI tools to go and do that kind of top slice thing, because I don't really want to do that. But you sit and you read these things, and it's like, well, every single one of them sounds the same, because I think people in the job market have kind of got to this point where there's this. I don't know if it's a common theory that everybody's using AI tools to choose candidates, so they optimize their CV, they sanitize it of all personality, and then it's just written in a particular way to beat the algorithm that might be selecting different candidates.
Yeah, literally the only benefit here is the tool makers. A bit like the gold rush, sell the spades. And the hardest thing here is you've got people using, HR teams using AI to review candidates. You've got people creating CVs using AI tools because they can scan for the keywords and work out what exactly you need to say. And what you end up with is the same regurgitated slot where everyone sounds identical. So we're losing that human connect really, really quickly.
Yeah, I think I read a lot of them, and I'm like, anyone that shows an ounce of personality in their writing, you kind of go, oh, well, for me and my business, that's what we want. But everyone seems to have been SEO optimized, so it's kind of like you know, from a selection process, from a fit, like actually, employing people in the UK, it becomes really, really difficult, because you might as well kind of throw a dart at it and just go, we'll try you and see if it pans out. So it's kind of a bit of a blind date situation. Even when you meet people, they've pre-primed their responses, they've rehearsed that, and it's like you miss it.
So take the example. So last year, one of my weirdly most popular posts that I did on LinkedIn was one where I was massively triggered, where they were talking about how anyone who wasn't using AI was going to be out of a job. All those companies were going to be destroyed. And one of the companies I was working with had done a little assessment internally on a very simple activity. It was just a standardized, like, quarterly type report. And what they found was the person who created the report created it using AI generated data. They used the AI to write the report. They sent it out to the team. Almost everyone in the team used AI to review the report and create a summary. They summarized it, sent it up to their leadership using AI. Leadership then reviewed it using AI to say, what do I care about this? And generated an email to reply back to the team using AI. So at no point did anyone in this business engage with any of the content whatsoever. They didn't understand it. They basically outsourced their corporate thinking totally to a third-party service that wasn't even their corporate service.
That's wild.
And that applies to the kind of jobs market, but also generally to business. As a species, we're so inherently absolutely dumb. We do the same stupid things and we expect a different outcome, and it's absolutely nuts. What do we expect is going to happen when we outsource everything we do?
Yep. I mean, as usual, as advertised, you've got some pretty strong views on that. What was the reaction sentiment to that? Because I think that's even more telling than.
It was the general acknowledgement was, yeah, I do that. And yeah, I didn't think about it like that, because everyone thinks they're the only one doing the thing. You don't actually realise that no one's engaging with all the things you're doing. So actually, as we all secretly know, a huge amount of work in the world of business is busy work. That doesn't really have any notional outcome and value, but we've now accelerated that. We've gone to the extreme now where the machines are running everything inside our businesses and we don't even actually know it. Because all we're doing is we're pasting something into a prompt window. And these engines, they're trained to tell us we're wonderful. Because whenever I use the tools, I love the fact it tells me I'm the deepest, greatest thinker the world has ever seen. I know I'm not.
What? It says that to me.
I know you're equally as special.
Yeah, it just goes, this is a masterstroke. Every time I do anything, and I'm like, that's great. That's a nice little dopamine hit. I mean, I'm enjoying that one. It's definitely interesting to see how kind of business culture and job culture changes, or has changed, in terms of what it means to use AI. Am I doing my work, or is this thing doing my work for me? Is this acceptable? How do I feel about it? I'm getting paid, but am I doing as much work as I could? But very quickly, and I talk about this being like a drug, kind of the dosage increases, And then when more and more people start doing the same thing, then it becomes a collective culture of, oh, well, that's just what we do now. We all use, oh, just stick it in Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever it might be.
Well, I think, I mean, to paraphrase one of the deepest thinkers of our time, Super Hans from Peep Show, try my crack, it's really Moorish.
Okay. Yeah.
And we don't realise how desperate we are to use these things now.
Yeah. Oh, you've made me laugh now. I've gone a bit red. Okay, so I mean, so in that sense, what does it mean if we are using these tools? I mean, do we have a sense of pride anymore? I think I do. I think I like writing something on my own. I might have AI check it, but then I go, well, do I really want to check it?
Everyone does this. We all say the same thing. We think we're the pious ones who are, I'm only going to use it to do this little thing. And I guarantee you, if you actually step back and got someone to watch you doing it, just say you create a document or a report,
Yeah.
you'll start in the report that it's spat out and you'll be very thorough. You'll be reviewing it going, oh, actually, no, I don't think of it. No, actually, I'll change that. I'll change this. You'll get about 2 pages in and your thinking will drift and you go, yeah, that's probably good enough. That's probably good enough. And by the time you get down to halfway, you've outsourced it. You're not thinking anymore. You're churning it back out. And we call that thinking now.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is the tool vendors know this and they're now going, well, you can upload specific documents and it will only look at those. You go, but that's not all it's going to do. But it's not actually thinking, which is what a lot of people believe it is. It's just, it knows what letters comes next.
So I guess in that sense, and when we kind of talk about this sort of over-the-counter AI that anyone can go in through a web browser, go and access, any company, you know, people talk about companies adopting AI. Well, if you adopt it or not, your employees have already adopted it with permission or without permission, or even if permission is needed. So it's become that pervasive that everyone's an AI or has an AI function, which then becomes a governance problem, an ethics problem, so on and so forth. But I mean, the companies you work with, even if they haven't got an official AI policy, which I'm sure many of them have, how do you even view that?
So they all now have AI policies. They all have AI risk and governance teams. So there's a huge amount of work going on for them to create these standard things. But they're not covering the bit about AI risk. They're thinking more from an external business perspective, not really the ethics internally of this at all. And there's a real problem also that we look at, which is there's the tools the company says you use, and then there's all the tools people actually use. So we did a review with a fairly substantial bank on this, and we were allowed to ask their teams legitimately, what do you actually use AI for and where do you use it? And they were not using the corporate tools in the way the company thought they were. And also when we started looking, so we couldn't ask them what. We said, have you ever used a non-approved company AI tool to do your job? Over 90% said yes.
Yeah.
And so the next question was, have you ever put company confidential data into that AI tool? And the answer was yes, all the time. And that was more than 90% of them were saying this. So companies who have all these guardrails and security things and they stop people downloading documents, do they not realise their staff are taking screenshots of things? They're taking pictures of things and uploading it into AI and saying, can you summarise this for me? Can you translate this for me? Can you do this for me? So there's company confidential information leaking out all over the place with absolutely no controls.
Well, that's wildly depressing.
Yeah. Well, if you look at you call it the unregulated use, and there's massive unregulated, and big companies cannot move as fast as all the niche, nimble people that are coming out. Because you look at, again, going back to us being inherently dumb, someone in the press says, there's a new shiny tool out that does something 5% faster and it can do video generation, blah, blah, blah. People will, on that in a second, the corporate machine will go, no, we need to review this for 1.5 years to ensure it meets all of our compliance standards. We need to ensure it can be rolled out effectively. We've actually signed a committed contract with vendor X over there, so we don't have budget to adopt this tool. Then people will use it anyway. You will not stop them.
So I mean, how does anyone get across that sort of time delta problem? I mean, can we?
No. Unfortunately, Pandora's box is open, and the other challenge we have is when you step back to the other way is the companies who are doing this, they have so much money. They are piling so much money into the lobbying of this of governments. So they are trying to slow down any governance, any legislation, anything that possibly holds them back. They are throwing as much money as possible into this. You look at when they talk about investing billions into a country. They're doing that because it helps them, not because it helps the country. And when they do that, that gives them so much power over decisions. Because if they then start talking about things like they say, well, if you govern us, then we won't invest in your country. what prime minister or president wants to stand up on the table and go, we're no longer an AI growth zone because we put too much governance in. That's what they're forcing.
We've been thinking a lot lately. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the reduction in jobs moving into the working world. But then we've kind of got the middle. We've got the mid careers, which I would like to think we're both in the middle somewhere. What do we think it will mean to people like us, who would, trade experience basically?
So everyone's in a very fragile position right now because experience is now tradable inside an AI tool. And if the number of roles reduces, it's basically going to become much more competitive. So we're going to see much more kind of role switching where people are going to have to retrain very rapidly at all stages in their career because they might suddenly find that their sector no longer exists. So tomorrow morning you could take, say, data analysts. There's now AI tools that can do that exponentially faster and at a perceived lower cost, even though I don't think it is actually a lower cost when you factor it all in. But that kind of thing is going to be happening all over the place without any controls. And so it's not just the entry level, it's the mid tier are very exposed. And the one interesting thing that I find that no one wants to talk about, because the people in charge don't want to talk about it, is why are we starting at the bottom?
That's fair.
Yeah, because these tools, actually, you take the average CEO, you could replace their thinking in a heartbeat with an AI tool. You could replace a CFO, you could replace a COO. Why are they not putting themselves on the shopping block? Because they're the ones who are paid the most. They're the ones with the most amount to gain here. But they're the ones who are literally pulling up the drawbridge to future aspirations. Because they're not willing to bring anyone through, but they're looking after themselves.
I suppose that obviously the knock-on impact is then, if we haven't got those new recruits coming in at the early career, and we've got mid-career moving into late career, at some point we're going to have a gap in the middle.
Yeah.
And like, what does, and the main issue as usual is time.
AI will solve that.
Wishy thinking, star maths.
Yes, because if you look at the old corporate hierarchy, the pyramid, that existed forever, and now it's that with a lampshade on top. There's nothing more to it.
Yeah.
But because of that, the talent pool you're going to find is going to be very, very slender because you never know that the people at the start of their career are going to be the ones who are going to thrive in the mid-career or late career. But you're now going to be fishing from a really, really small pool of people.
Yeah, and this is what to be believed by some of the AI companies. It's like, oh, well, you won't have a career anymore. It won't be a particular field. It will be, a career for 2 or 3 years, and then you'll switch, and then you'll do something else and make apps, and then you'll do, I don't know, manual labor. You might do all sorts of things.
Weirdly, the whole fractional world has suddenly become very attractive to lots of people because everyone's having these portfolio careers, fractional careers, where you do 3 or 4 things simultaneously often. And the one thing companies I don't think have realised that they're going to get now is they have destroyed any loyalty that employees have towards them. So it used to be you were loyal because it was the right thing to do to your boss because they'd look after you, you'd look after them, it just about hung together and worked. Now everyone knows they could go in tomorrow morning and find their entire department, business unit, role gone. There's no, you've been great, we'll look after you. There's, what's the least I can pay you to get you out of this building because I've replaced you with a tool. And that is changing how people react when they work with companies now. Because why should they go above and beyond?
Yeah.
There's no reason for them to go above and beyond.
I guess it then becomes a trust and a faith in the organisation and the mission that you've joined when you were there. Because I think we all like to think that we've chosen jobs in the past on, personal beliefs, or this is a mission-driven type company, and I believe in that, so my values align. I mean, value alignment seems.
I think there was a subset who did that.
Yeah.
Again, if we were actually brutally honest, we took the job because it paid the most we could possibly get, so we could buy the house, we could live the life that we wanted. And I would agree there's definitely people who did take roles because it was the right thing to do and they wanted it in line with their beliefs. But too many of us went to work in law firms, oil and gas, pharmaceutical, whatever it is, just because it paid the money that we needed to earn.
And we've been, to your point though, we've just followed this cultural narrative of grow up, work hard, get as bigger job and salary as you can, and you'll be able to buy nice big houses and cars and holidays. And that's been the narrative for the last however many decades. All of a sudden, the notion of that has just been flipped upside down.
Yeah, and I don't think necessarily that kind of AI is the cause of all this. I think AI is accelerating what was already happening. And it's suddenly become a beast that is absolutely out of control. And the one question that we don't also want to ask is, why are we doing this? Who actually benefits from this? Because it isn't society that benefits. The only thing that we're doing here is we're helping billionaires on the race to become a trillionaire. And there is no gain there. So if you would take a billion, say someone's worth 50 billion. If they wake up tomorrow morning and they're now worth 70 billion, what's changed in their life? And the answer is nothing. And the problem we have here is the money is being extracted from the individuals to the billionaires. The individuals pay a marginal rate of tax in the region of around 50-60% when you add it all up, on average. The average billionaire pays a marginal rate of tax of typically less than 10%, and sometimes as low as 3 to 4%. So if we expect society to function, so the Western world, rapidly aging societies, so our cost of social care is going through the roof because we have an elderly population who needs support. Where's that money going to come from if we're just giving it all out to these billionaires who then shovel it off into tax havens? Yeah. And these are not just the usual suspects like the Microsofts and the Amazons of the world, who are pretty nefarious when it comes to their tax behaviour, but it's also all the new AI companies, because they are putting their money as far away as they possibly can, which then links back into the complete bullshit that is universal basic income. And that one really triggers me, as you know.
Yeah, I know it does. I think it's quite confusing, I think, for most people to understand, well, where is this universal basic income coming from? Some sort of nebulous idea and concept somewhere that someone's going to provide us, which is probably akin to some sort of religion. But where does the kind of UBI thing come from?
So it's been talked about in society for a very long time, and notionally, it's a really good thing. Yeah? Until you actually do the sums and realise it just doesn't stack up. Because you need a giant tax base to pay UBI. And UBI could just be social benefits under a different spectrum.
So we have seen researchers have had a little look. There's a couple of like UBI examples. There's one running in Wales, I think, at the moment. There's maybe one that's happened in Ireland with about 2,000 people, and they've been paying them a basic income, and it's, some of the metrics are people are happier and they're able to earn more from their creative pursuits and so on and so forth, which, to be fair, feels pretty obvious, that if you're giving someone essentially free money every month, then their life's going to be a little bit easier, and they'll report feeling slightly happier about it. But that's over 2,000 people. And I guess when you look at what that might look like at scale across a nation, and if the number of jobs are going to disappear and the percentages that people are sometimes touting, is there any way that we would ever be able to finance that? People say big tech will finance it.
Yeah, so which is my entire argument here. So conceptually, it's an awesome thing. We're going to wander around the fields picking daisies, writing music, having a lovely life. Why on earth would we be allowed to do that? Why on earth would the leaders who control things actually allow that to be an outcome? And actually, the whole capitalist markets work on the basis that cost would soon be absorbed, as in the money coming in. They'll find a way to extract it, because that's all they exist for, is to work out how to extract the money as fast as possible. And then if you do have that then, so you have all this money coming in and people are doing free will, how's that going to be funded? People say the billionaires will suddenly become altruistic and they're going to go, you know what, I know I've never paid tax before, but I'm suddenly now going to be willing to pay a huge proportion of my tax. If that is the case, then why are we doing this in the first place? What is the point in the first place if the people who then hoard all the money are then going to give it all the way back over here? We know they won't, because they don't today. So take world hunger. So a figure has been thrown on the price of fixing world hunger. You can argue whether it's right or wrong, call it 100 billion, 200 billion, a trillion, doesn't matter. The money exists to fix that today. So if they're not willing to fix world hunger today, why do we think they're suddenly going to be willing to fund a universal basic income? And a lot of the things they talk about is, they will create new jobs. They won't, because the numbers don't stack up. So you can't possibly have a gigantic investment in AI platform services and things and increase jobs at the same time, because the market doesn't sustain that. The market cannot grow at the same rate.
There's a lot of talk about the increase in jobs, or jobs that will arrive, right? But we don't know what they are yet, which is the famous kind of get out on that. There's these imaginary jobs that are going to turn up. And you can see, all right, maybe there's AI ethics roles or prompt engineers or whatever these rebadged things might be. I think we can all admit that they're not going to meet the scale of potential
and also,
job reduction.
Look what's already happening in that. So that is a really good sector to talk about. So 18 months ago, everyone was going to retrain and be an AI prompt engineer. Then companies came out saying, I have a tool that helps you with your AI prompts, so you no longer need AI prompt engineers. Or the latest version of ChatGPT now doesn't need you to have a prompt. It will intelligently understand what the prompt you're trying. So basically, we're going to replace all of those roles with new AI-related roles. And that's also a tiny subset. Because if you just do if you think really basically from a logical perspective, if you're a big company investing in AI technology, you're going to have to spend a fortune on whether it's cloud services, AI platforms, AI software, and the people to run it. Yeah, that will have to have an outcome that someone's going to have to pay for. So if you're trying to suggest that the employment inside that company will not drop as a result of them massively investing in AI, then that is probably the most delusional thing I can see. Because if you add it up, just say you invest 100 million in AI, and there's no decrease in employment costs within that company now needs to make £100 million more profit.
Yeah.
But the average growth rate in every sector is between 5 and 7% per annum. So if they're going to grow at an exponential rate, that means someone else has to lose because the market cannot sustain that level of growth.
Yeah. I mean, the very nature of, we were talking about it the other day, it's like the very nature of just efficiency, just as a concept. It's like, take something away to get more, right?
But
That's the basic
companies
definition.
don't operate efficiently. They never have and they never will because they're too complex. If you take the world of IT, and the average company wastes more than 50% of what they spend on IT. And sometimes it can be as high as 80% or more. So actually, why do we expect that suddenly AI is going to fix that problem? Because it's always, sadly, it's people in the way of the problem. People slow down the decisions, and companies don't want to make the decisions they know they probably should. So we can't expect suddenly Nirvana's going to come along and everything's going to operate absolutely efficiently. And actually, if it does operate really efficiently, follow that argument through, this also doesn't hang together, because operating massively efficiently means you'll buy less, because you'll require fewer things to do the thing you already do. So if you're buying less, someone else in another sector has to lose.
Yeah.
And if that company loses, they're going to lose revenue, and what are they going to do? They're going to cut heads. So we cannot have this perpetuating argument where AI is going to fix everything by making everyone more efficient if we're actually going to be consuming far fewer resources.
I've got to admit, I mean, even on the ride down here, I was talking about, knew this would be quite a challenging conversation, and it's pretty dark right now. And you and I talk regularly about what it looks like in the media. The narrative, if you're paying attention to it, is challenging. Now, there is every reason that my bias might have caught up with me. The algorithmic kind of bubble that I may live in, you may live in, kind of sends us down this way. And some people will just sort of go, "Oh, no, that's
That actually
too
really worries me.
dark a look."
No, but that really worries me. Just what you said there, the whole bubble thing, is I'm really conscious that I live in a bubble where I'm fed non-stop news that aligns with what I believe. So my beliefs are getting stronger and stronger and stronger because I'm surrounded by it. And all the time I try and step outside it and I try and absorb more and get other people's viewpoints on this because I know that I'm probably wrong. And that's because I've been fed and educated based upon what I've heard. And that's a bit that really worries me, is we're now being controlled in society. Because if you look at now how, you step into the world of politics for a second, we used to be able to have a debate. So just say you were on one side of the camp and I was on the other. We could have a debate about something I wanted to do. And you might listen to me. You might go, I know we're against each other, but you know what? Keeping children alive is a good thing. We should be doing that. Now we've got to a stage where our beliefs are so indoctrinated and pinned and controlled on our views that it gets to a stage where I hate you just because of your alternative view. And I'm never going to agree with anything you ever say because you exist. And I know you're wrong about everything and I'm right. So actually, if you say save the children, I go, no, we shouldn't be saving the children. No, screw them.
So in this kind of authenticity deficit, as we keep calling it, when you can't believe anything you're looking at, then looking for good news becomes even harder.
But if you look at things like the new phrase that's sprung up in recent years now, it used to be, I'm going to Google that. And now everyone says, oh, ChatGPT said. And entire conversations now are literally people saying, so I'll say the sky is blue, and you see him going, is the sky blue? Help me rebut that. No, the sky is not blue.
Yeah.
And it becomes so again, it's my point of outsourcing our thinking. So we're losing any critical thought because we're letting someone else tell us what our view is.
That's a great point. But we've seen this before, right? We just, we Google it, right?
Yeah.
As far as I can remember, and I remember pre-internet, largely, I remember what it was like to wonder things. to sit around for 5 minutes and kind of wonder how something is made, how it works, whatever else. You walk into a room now and ask anyone a question and they don't immediately know the answer for, they will Google it. So kind of put pay to the kind of cognitive process of
Yep.
wondering something. Now we're seeing this extra level, and to your point, outsourcing thinking, but then to the topic, outsourcing your job. So models cost money. People pay for their own private model, not the company provided version.
Yep.
And of course, the more money you have, the better model you have. So in theory, the better model I have, the better work I can produce, and maybe the better job I can have. So when you're at a subscription of £200, £300, £400 a month, and you have maybe hypothetically worked your way into a couple of promotions because of how you've used this tool or outsourced your production of work, so on and so forth. Well, what happens when that £400 a month tool goes up to £1,200 a month?
Yeah, and that's coming fast, because if you look at the finances of a lot of these big companies, they're operating at an absolutely ginormous loss, and that's not sustainable, particularly given the investments they have to make. So at some point, the reckoning is coming, because this is the whole circle jerk of their money that's transferring around the place. No one knows whether this is actually true revenues, because it's money getting circling around where they're buying from them, buying from them, buying from them, buying from them. Money going around these giant circles where they're increasing the valuation quarter on quarter, year on year. But no one knows if it's actually real. But we literally have to believe it's real.
Yeah.
Because if it stops being real for a second, the economy vaporizes overnight.
Which is obviously challenging and wildly depressing as well. So thanks for that one. But there's a lot of talk on the bubble, right? And the kind of comparison to .com, mortgage crisis, others. You know, is there a world where this kind of bubble happens? We actually have a cultural business reset, and we kind of go, actually, yeah, maybe we don't want to be all in on AI, and maybe actually we start to revalue and kind of replace some of those tools with humans. You know, is there a silver lining anywhere to something that may or may not happen?
We almost need that Marie Antoinette type moment, which is society needs to have an upheaval. They're absolutely right. And the problem at the moment is there's too much control right from the very top, the way the money's being shoveled. So we're probably 10 to 15 years away from that actually being something that will realistically happen, sadly. And there's going to be a whole few generations that are going to have to take the pain to pass through it. So we're literally throwing a couple of generations under the bus.
Okay, so I like to kind of throw in a hypothetical. So if we maintain the current trajectory and everything is going as predicted, and we ignore the AI bubble and we start mass producing AI agents, we don't fire people necessarily, but we don't hire new people. These agents start encroaching on lots of people's jobs, roles, processes. Where does this go?
At some point, there will be a kind of a reckoning where something happens. Like it could be, say, a financial mistake. Because when you have trading platforms that are now entirely run by AI bots making the decisions, because they can make them in sub-micro milliseconds, whatever the dynamic, because they can make them so quickly, trades are happening. But it's now happening on both sides. And all it's going to take is for one of those algorithms, and it could be a security risk, it could be a malware injection, something could happen that could actually take it down. So it's going to take that to happen, and then regulators to be able to step in and say, actually, you need to get some people back in the way of this problem. That may happen, and I can see it happening in certain sectors, but we're probably quite a way away from that actually existing. And the problem you then have is, going back to we're predictably dumb, we'll then invest in the new tool to fix the thing that did the thing. Because the problem you've got is people don't want to admit it. And I do think actually what we might actually have is a subset of a split in the economy where we'll have companies who will thrive on we're the people company. I can actually see that happening in a dynamic where people will say, well, we need to be buying from our ethical policy says we need to be buying from companies. And there'll be something like a metric, which will be what's your percentage of AI to human resource on a percentage of revenue. And that'll be an interesting thing where if companies are willing to make decisions, and that will probably have to come from the public sector first, because they're supposed to do things for society, but actually, ironically, they're the ones who are running into the whole AI world as fast as they can. But when they're buying things, they need to have that point where they're going, right, we need to make a decision for the good of society. So, for example, UK jobs. Does it genuinely create UK jobs, or is it just complete bullshit?
Need some kind of fair trade policy.
Yeah. It'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would be nice to see it actually enforced, though, because a lot of what we say we do isn't what we actually do. So the pretend ethics we have. So if you look at how governments go to market to buy new tools and things, they know often what they're going to buy before they even go to market. They've pre-decided the outcome, and they write a tender that is going to lead them to the outcome that they already want. But they have to do that process to pretend they followed their own rules and ethics and governance. And a lot of it is also because, again, we use big tech as that example. They have their hooks so strongly inside the public sector that often they're the ones writing the requirement in the first place that leads to them getting revenue.
So we did see recently, maybe the tail end of last year, that there's a tender gone out, a government tender for somebody to develop a AI chatbot that will help people get into or back into work, which sort of feels oxymoronic in lots of ways.
Yeah, it's you can probably guess my view on that. It's lunacy. And you can argue the AI chatbots absolutely can probably do a better job than the people who would have to do the job would be able to do. There's no doubt about that. But what you have to ask is the question of why could they do that job better? And that's simply because they're better at parsing really, really complex information. So actually the problem that they're solving here is the fact that the government and public sector in the background are stubbornly unwilling to make all their own processes and data collection points simpler in the first place. You don't need an AI tool to fix that problem. You need management and leadership to step up and actually be willing to address their own incompetencies first. Then the people would have a really simple path.
Yeah.
You don't need to, but we're literally using AI as a sticking plaster in that.
Yeah. You're going to need to give me something to go away with. I mean, when it comes to AI, the future of work, the jury's out on what that's going to look like in actual terms. But what is the benefit? Is there anything good that we can theorize coming out of the situation we're seeing?
So if you can set aside the damage to jobs and that kind of thing, then actually for people working, a lot of these tools do have a lot of benefit. So there's things they can do where they really, really help. And the only problem that we have to address is us becoming so addicted to them that we stop thinking. And that's kind of my biggest worry, is that our nature to stop thinking and letting the thing do it for us. But actually, yeah, it can create presentations for us. It can help us write reports. It can help sanity check the quality of what we're producing. So there are really good use cases. And you can also pick in any sector. So if you take, say, healthcare, for example, if it can help us solve things like cancer, if it can help with treating things like dementia, that's absolutely awesome. But it doesn't mean we throw away the rest of society to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I like to, when I talk about this, well, as you know, I like to talk about like the benefit of if I talk about AI as a drug, what's the benefit of it? So what's the thing it's going to cure, but then what's the side effect? So what in other terms, what would be its biggest benefit or cure? And what would be the worst side effect you can imagine?
So I think the benefits are easing the pain and burden of work. If we could do that without damaging people's careers, that would be absolutely awesome. The biggest problem is the wealth transfer. And that bit that I talked about earlier, which is we're just taking all the money away from people who actually need it to people who don't need it. Mm-hmm. And we can't get those people who are taking it to contribute back into society in any meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. Fair. So let's say you're in government and you're charged with trying to fix this ship up. What's your X-point plan? Where do you go?
Oh man, that's a fun one. So the biggest problem you have to get is to get a bunch of very, very arrogant, narcissistic leaders the world over to agree to sit in a room and actually standardise on a fair taxation policy. Because if we could agree, and if you take, for example, really simple thing that they'll never do. I'm not trading with you if you offshore more than X% of your profits to a third-party jurisdiction. You can no longer trade with me. So you're making it, and it's okay if you carry on wanting to do that, but you are now consciously cut out from 40% of the economy because we will not trade with you. So a fair trade policy where you have to pay this rate of marginal tax rate, otherwise we're not going to trade with you. So actually, if I'm in the heart of government, tougher taxation policies on it, absolutely tax the use of the tools and services in the first place, and make companies actually contribute back a fair rate of tax. And that would actually simplify the entire tax system, which, funnily enough, you know what that would lead to? Lower taxes for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone in society will pay lower taxes as a result of that happening.
Well, I mean, would I vote for you?
It'd be a dangerous thing.
It would be a dangerous thing, but I mean, I think right now in the world, stranger things have happened and stranger people have maybe been voted for. So I'm not sure it's too bad a thing. There's a lot of people wondering what job's safe, what skill do they need to have. What would be your advice to anyone who is questioning what their future with AI looks like?
So the first thing I'd say is learn more skills, and these can be practical skills. And I think one of the futures for university actually will be, if you're going to do a course like law, there should also be an alignment with that with electricians or plumbing or carpentry. So actually you have practical skills that can be put to practical use.
Yeah.
So that helps broaden out and reduces the risk in society because you're not stuck in just one career.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a shift, right? It's a cultural shift because we did what careers advice, and it was right. You pick a direction, and you go in that direction.
That's your path.
Yeah.
You are that forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other part of that is I just want people to be like, stop assuming that your belief is right. Challenge everything you hear and challenge your own beliefs, because you are and this applies to me, you're so indoctrinated into your way of thinking that we've stopped, because we've outsourced the thinking to the machine. The machine's told me I'm right, so therefore I think you're wrong. So start thinking more critically and stop being so lazy when it comes to reviewing content you're given, and actually apply the filter to it and go, is this actually just complete nonsense? So think out, it's a cheesy, trappy phrase, but think outside the box and be prepared to consider someone else's opinion and think about how they might have been indoctrinated into their view as much as you're being indoctrinated into yours.
Well, I think that'll do me for now. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back on the motorbike and try and cheer myself up.
Safe riding.
Okay. Oh, great. Well, there we go. Mark Butcher bringing all the doom and lots of rain. Ugh. Wet and miserable. My trousers are soaking wet. Well, this is not the day for riding. However, another interesting conversation with Mark, albeit a bit like this weather actually, a bit bleak. This is challenging times. And it's not to say that these things, some of the things that even Mark said will definitely happen. Chances are they won't. But I think what is important is that we're actually, at minimum, thinking about it. But talking about it is what really matters. It's a hard conversation, especially when it comes to jobs, because it's such a personal thing. Everyone's got such a different opinion on what this will mean. You know, the very nature of work may change, and how we perceive our own role in the working world and what careers look like. And that's a massive shift. That's a massive shift. I mean, we've built the idea of work and jobs and industries and specialisms over decades. And in a few short years, that has become fundamentally different. So much so that we're not looking at what will my life's work be, what will my career be, because we're predicting that people are going to have multiple careers and they're going to have multiple specialisms which they can turn to, which kind of like sort of sits more alongside the gig economy. And will we maybe lose true specialisms or experts? Because if we're a whole country of generalists, then can we really excel in any one place? I think we all have an obligation to try and learn and understand what that implication might be, and educate ourselves and discuss it with other people so we can all kind of navigate this new future together. So that's my hope for it. It's because I want to believe, and I truly believe that Mark wants to believe as well, that there are going to be genuinely good things that come out of this. So I'm going to continue a very soggy journey home, but we'll plan out the next one. We'll go and find somebody to talk to. Maybe it's another expert or somebody that's been affected, maybe positively, maybe negatively, with AI in the UK. So I'll continue my journey to explore how AI is altering Britain.